Hello and welcome to the Album of the Year podcast. My name is Marty, and here in beautiful Leander, Texas, we have Chris Wright, as always, right to my left.
It's
Chris,
the same thing every time.
Same
right?
shit,
we should
man.
just stop it. We should just start right on a dime. Just be like, the music fades, and then it's like, okay, it's 2006, guys.
Yeah.
We're going straight to Wikipedia.
Taking you to church.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
is
that's
Sunday,
what we're
yeah.
It is
No,
Sunday.
yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's interesting. Wife and kids are out of town right now, so I just kind of have run of the house.
We do.
So it's party time, brother.
Party time. We're gonna,
we're gonna do exactly what we always
bathe
do.
ourselves in wing sauce.
And then talk about music for 3 hours. And
pretty
get
much.
tired and go home. Yeah, pretty much. No, this is going to be a great one, man. We're talking about 2006 this time. Before we launch into that, I got to say, I'm going to just kind of intro you here.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
My man, Marty, we talked about this last time. We said that he was going to go to ACL Fest. Marty, I think you have lived the dream of the rock critic this week because I think you've been to I think you've seen, I was counting it up, I think it's 7,000 artists that you've seen.
Something like
week.
that, yeah.
It probably feels like that.
Yeah, it does.
So really, it's exciting, man. And I got to read your article in class, and it was great to see.
Thank you, man.
That, and I was jealous, professionally jealous, but in a good way, in a way that I was proud of you. So
thank you, man.
So tell us about it, man. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so as I think I said something about it on the lunchtime episode. I got tapped by Clash Magazine to cover ACL Fest week 1. Thanks to Caitlin, she gave them my info, and they linked up with me. And it was really a really great experience, man. Like, I can't say anything bad about it. I mean, first of all, I get to go to ACL Fest for free, which is incredible. Wow. Yeah. And second off, I got access to a press area, which had bathrooms with toilets that actually flushed, which I was actually really more excited about than I probably should have been. Right. And I don't think I realized that until like halfway through Friday. I was like, I went back there and I was like, oh, there's actual bathrooms back here. Oh man, this is great. So yeah, that was really cool. That was definitely not the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But
the highlight.
The highlight, yeah. One of the highlights. One of the dotted with place where I can use the restroom away from whatever. But anyway, so I had never been to an ACL Fest before. So,
oh, really?
No,
okay.
Never, not ever. So it was really interesting. I mean, essentially, Clash had me cover. There were certain artists that I was set to cover for Clash. They wanted me to do a lot of stuff that I'm not necessarily into. And to be completely honest, I ended up writing more about the stuff that I wasn't into than I did for like the Raconteurs or like Guns N' Roses, like stuff I really wanted to see. I just Childish Gambino, like. So I think it was a thing where I was just trying to find like things that I did find a lot of redeeming qualities in the stuff that I wasn't crazy about, honestly. And everybody was talking about Billie Eilish and Lizzo. I feel like those were the two main attractions of the weekend for sure, and Guns N' Roses too, because the reunion show or whatever. But it was really Billie's set was really odd. It was like, I was like, this is pop music now, huh? Like, wow, I'm kind of, I don't want to say impressed, but I'm kind of like, this is cool. It's different, It's not like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
it's not just like, here comes Britney Spears.
Exactly,
copying Madonna.
Yeah, and it was like kind of quiet. Like her live presentation, there's some production choices there that I wasn't expecting at all. Like I remember saying to myself, like, this should be louder. Like, we're at an outdoor festival and like I can kind of not barely hear her, but I can just, it's almost like I'm just like listening to like, my phone and my headphones or something, like, which isn't a bad thing, honestly. No. But yeah, and they wanted us to catch Catherine, the photographer, Clash's photographer. We were hanging out, and Clash, I guess, wanted some photos of her. She did the All Songs Considered podcast during the festival. They have like a little area where they do like stuff like that at ACL, and so we caught some of that. And she's only 17, right? So Billie Eilish is only 17. So a lot of the questions that she was asked, she answered like a 17-year-old would. But again, I don't think that's bad.
No, I don't think so.
Like, she seems like a pretty good kid, and like seems to understand exactly kind of what her, having millions of Twitter followers or whatever means in this day and age, and kind of how to, I guess, approach that in a way that isn't shitty, and she has this really interesting style. Like, she came out in like head to toe neon green when she
I saw the photos. I was
stuff.
like, wow, okay. Yeah. That looks like TLC's first album.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was
on the Billie Eilish tip. I mean,
and she was back in the press area too. When I was there, I took a picture. I was like 5 feet away from her, and she was wearing this like really big like Burberry flannel and stuff. She was very style conscious, which I thought was really interesting. So yeah. And then like Lizzo was fantastic. There were literally like 60,000 people there to see Lizzo, Chris. It was insane.
That's so cool.
It was so cool.
Because you saw her in like a tiny club, right?
I never got to see her. No.
Who saw her? Someone told us the other day that they had seen Lizzo at a very small club. I thought that was you.
It wasn't me. No, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish I would have got to see her. She played. I remember maybe like a year and a half to 2 years ago. She played at Antone's.
Yeah,
and like literally 6 months later, she was playing like arenas and shit. So her kind of cachet skyrocketed, which is great. She's an incredible artist, and I mean it was just cool. Everybody, it was that song "Truth Hurts" that she has that everybody loves. Like, people were singing that song so loud that you couldn't even hear her singing. Like, you couldn't even hear the music, and it was like it was great. It was incredible. So
that's when they've really made a connection. So some people complain about that, like people sing. I didn't come to hear drunk guy number 25 sing. I came to hear Lizzo sing, man.
Yeah, right.
But
I don't know if that guy's gonna sing.
Drunk guy, he may be singing some
Lizzo here, man. I don't know.
Hey, man, that Lizzo.
I don't know if like the
I love that Lizzo.
The girl silhouette mud flap pickup truck guy is Lizzo's primary demographic, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, maybe not. He's too busy at the Taste of Blue Ash listening to
Loverboy. That guy is definitely at the Taste of Blue Ash. Yeah, seriously.
Sorry, we've been pestering ourselves with that all morning, but loving every minute of it. Oh my gosh. Well, so Lizzo was a highlight. Billie Eilish, obviously one of the big pop star in the world. And, what about Guns N' Roses? This week, you and I had a debate going in because I was like, well, I would have loved to have seen Guns N' Roses in about 1989. Maybe through the mid 90s until Slash was out of the band.
Yeah.
If they had gotten back together in the 2000s or something, maybe I would have been a little more excited for it. But,
right.
So I was very skeptical about whether it would. I mean, I'm sure it would be professional, but whether it would feel like anything other than old guys getting back together.
Yeah.
Axl's been kind of off the farm for a couple of decades now. So I didn't know if that was going to be any good. So tell me. I mean, I read the piece, but how did you feel about it?
I felt pretty good about it, honestly. So here's what. Okay, full disclosure, right? Like, so you could tell that Slash's guitar was really, really hot in the live mix. Axl's vocals were not, and I think there was a reason for that. Like, he can't hit those high notes anymore like he could. And they have like a girl that like kind of sings backup and plays an organ too, as part of the band as well. So you're kind of right. But with that being said, was it still cool to see them play those songs? Absolutely. Yeah. Like, absolutely. It was cool to see him play November Rain and like,
Mr. Brownstone.
Mr. Brownstone. Yeah. That was like the second or third song they played, I think. And like, and like I said in the piece, like they fucking ooze cool still. I will say this though, Axl is still out there trying to move around like he's in his 20s, and he's a big
little snake dance.
Yes,
he did.
Absolutely, dude. Of course he fucking did. And he those of you that have seen pictures of Axl Rose in the last 5 to 10 years, he's filled out quite a bit. But look, man, he's out there trying, doing it, and all of them are out there. I don't fault
him for doing it.
Yeah, they're all doing what they can to give.
He should have swallowed his pride 20 years ago.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I've never been one of those guys who's like, oh, those old dinosaurs should just quit, get off the stage.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's part of the DIY thing. It's kind of like, look, if they want to keep doing it, let them do it.
Why not?
You know what I mean?
If enough people are interested in seeing it.
Yeah.
And dude, it was obviously packed out, and it was great to see. Like, I'm happy I got to see that, and it was funny too because so it's like, okay, like Duff Slash Axl, but the drummer, and they have like a kind of like second guitar player who I thought was Izzy,
but it wasn't.
Not Izzy. Yeah. No. And then I don't know who's played. It's not Matt Sorum was their original drummer. Is that right? Or is he a guitar player? But anyway, but whoever they had playing backup guitar, he would kind of like come and go. Like, he wasn't on every song, and he'd kind of like, I don't know if for some of the songs he was playing off stage, and then he'd pop back out and, kind of trade licks with Slash and stuff.
A lot of rock bands do that though, where they'll bring somebody for support because they have like layers of guitar, and you can't like Scott McCoy used to always tour with REM, and he was like the missing member of REM, but I mean, he was basically in REM, or Pat Smear in Nirvana,
that's true.
they would bring these guys in and tour with them, and that's pretty normal, you know.
Pat Smear was in the Foo Fighters too, wasn't he? Or did I have that wrong?
I know he's played with the
Like,
Foo Fighters. I don't know if he was an official, but maybe the same thing. Maybe that's what that guy does. You
Yeah,
know?
maybe he's just kind of like
He's
a
like,
hired
look, I
gun
was in
that
the
goes on
Germs.
road.
I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. Yeah, he was in the Germs. Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Shit, yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, if I want to go on tour and play guitar, I can do that, Dave Grohl. And you're just going to have to fucking deal with it, man.
Yeah, you just actually, it's like Dave never knows if he's going to be there. He's just playing. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, Pat Smear walks out with a guitar, and he's like, "Hey, all right,
awesome.
Pat's here tonight." Okay,
Ooh, cool. That's great. Like, I guess we just have to deal
you think
with
Pat's
this.
going to
All
be
right.
here tonight? Pat wasn't here tonight. The show
No,
wasn't
he's
ready.
he needed to get some In-N-Out burger.
Yeah, he
burger,
was
so.
he was eating it out.
Yeah, he got
showed
his
up.
animal style and then showed up for Big Me during
Yeah,
the encore or something. But no,
Pat Smear is great. By the way, when Nirvana got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I did watch that, and it was annoying the hell out of me as it went on that nobody said anything about Pat at all.
Yeah.
You know, like he plays on the Unplugged, and he was in all the so many live shows
Yeah.
and stuff, and it's like everyone's like, thank you to the guy at the record company who polished my shoe one time and all this stuff, and it's like nobody, like Pat's there playing with them, and no one ever said anything about him until the very, very end. Dave like literally gets down from the drum riser and grabs the mic. He's like, "Oh yeah, Pat Smear. Also, we couldn't have done it without you." And I was like, "Thank God,
you.
someone remembered
Yeah.
this guy." You know,
Seriously. Yeah. So, I mean, with all kind of, due respect, whatever, they were still great. Yeah. And
Yeah,
Slash
good.
still sounds amazing. I mean, you can get old and you can still really play the guitar. Like, that's something
Right.
that's not going to go away.
arthritis and stuff is the big problem that guitarists have. so-
Tendinitis or whatever. Yeah.
Which I have that problem.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that
yeah,
sucks.
like I have chronic tendinitis. It's really. I can't practice like I used to be able to. I
Really?
play for about 30 minutes and my wrists get just burned. They're like on fire.
So
So I don't even know if I could do
Like
like
a
be in
live
a
show.
band and be in
Yeah.
a live show again.
Really?
I really don't know.
Damn, dude.
Yeah,
That
it's been that
sucks,
way
man.
for a couple of years too. It's
Oh,
awful.
Sorry to hear that.
So-
I had no idea, Chris. Jeez.
So the struggle is real, but
Damn.
you
Well,
ever
anyway.
hear like Chuck Berry at the end of his life? Like he would go out and try to play, and it was like
Yeah.
the last couple of years you'd see video of it. And it's just heartbreaking.
It's
'cause
rough
like-
because he can't do the stuff he
Yeah.
could do before. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So other highlights: Childish Gambino was amazing. It was one. I've never seen anything like his live set. Never. It was incredible. And I just said something about taking you to church. That's what he said. Like after he played his second or third song, he was like, "Everybody, put your phones away." He goes, "Put your phones away. This is for us. I'm taking you to, this is an experience," he said. "I'm taking you to church." And he didn't buckle on that promise.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It was like an hour and a half of just like sheer amazingness, like nothing I've ever seen before. It was
How was This Is
incredible.
America?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
He had these dancers that like had like wardrobe changes and stuff, and like his band was absolutely killer. Like they were just, it was incredible, man. I don't know how else to say it.
It's
it was
weird with
very
an
good.
artist like that where he kind of starts as an actor and then
Yeah.
kind of transitions to
Yeah.
music because
Yeah.
you're like, do we like him because we are all community fans, or
Right, right.
Do we,
Yeah.
And to hear that his live show is, and I've heard that before, but to hear it from you, I was like someone I definitely trust on this. That that's I'm glad to hear that. But I also kind of think if you're an actor first, you probably bring a charisma to your performance or the stage craft of this thing that probably makes a big difference. Too,
After
in a live setting.
after he did This Is America, you could tell he was visibly kind of overwhelmed. Like they did that song and he sat down like on the side of the stage and he was talking to one of his like production manager people that had like the headset on, and I don't know, you couldn't see what they were saying, but he like just kind of shaking his head and stuff. And then like a minute later he got right back into it and he was fine.
Yeah,
but you could tell he was just like
Took a lot out
overwhelmed
of it.
from the audience and all that stuff. But
did he make any reference to trying to be here last year or whatever?
he
the
did,
broken
yeah,
foot
yeah.
thing?
When he came out, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he came out like 50 feet above the stage on this like fucking crane thing,
Right.
And like there were these like disco lights above him, like it was almost like he was wearing like a crown or something. It was fucking cool, man. And he sang a new song, and then they lowered him down, and then he played I don't remember what other song he played, but yeah, it was so good, man. It was like I said, like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was very fun. So Who else did I see? There was this 19-year-old reggae singer named Coffee with a K that was really, really cool. She had this really cool band backing her, and like the band like came out like a few minutes before she did, and like warmed up the crowd and stuff. And it kind of like reminded me of like James Brown or Wilson Pickett or something. Yeah. Like it was really cool, man. And
almost
she came out and played.
Even, going back to our very first episode, Sam Cooke, where they played Soul Twist.
It was kind of like that. Yeah. It was
King Curtis doing his thing.
Yeah, it was really impressive, really, really good. So, the Raconteurs were amazing.
Yeah,
they were so good. And like I said, there was a huge crowd to see them, which was kind of affirming, given the topic we covered in the last lunchtime. Is I liked how you actually said something about that when you wrapped it up. I was like, because I didn't listen to the whole episode until a few days after we posted it, and I was like, oh man, Chris, good, that's awesome, that's so good.
Yeah, man. No, I saw that, and I thought I didn't. I think you sent it to me at like 11 o'clock at night though, so I was asleep when you said you're rocking out or whatever, and I'm napping.
Yeah,
But the next day I was like, oh, cool, yeah, and then I was able to add that, so kind of give you the last word on it.
Sure, yeah, no, that was really, really great, man. I appreciate it. But yeah, it was all in all, it was a fantastic experience, and I would do it again if they wanted me to. You know, I'd be happy to.
Fabulous. So the actual writing of everything, are you there like, okay, I just saw Billie Eilish, let me go back to the press room and kind of write.
No, while I'm watching the show, right on my phone.
Yeah.
Like I got some of those pieces I finished while I was watching the artist or the band, like 5 or 6 songs in sometimes, and like I would tweak them here and there a little bit, but one or two of them are not that much different from what I wrote, you know. And what I was doing is I would first watch the first couple songs, I'd just kind of write some stuff down that I thought I was going to want to say and like space it out a little bit, and then if I felt compelled, I would just start writing out the piece and just see how it sounded, you know. A couple of them I wrote before I even saw the band, before the band even went on.
What?
And just to see how close
like your expectations would be
to dude. The only one where that kind of worked was Idols, because I'm a huge Idols fan, and I knew kind of what they were going to do, and they were amazing as always. And but yeah, it was kind of interesting. Like a couple of them I was way off. I was like, shit, like this isn't what I thought it was going to be at all, but that's okay, you know. Like so that was kind of an exercise that I did to kind of get my mind kind of going. So
now I remember when I went to ACL for the first time in 2004, I think. I saw the Killers, and it was right before Hot Fuss broke. So
really?
So obviously it was already like out or whatever, but like we didn't know any of their songs yet. They were like opening slot, you know what I mean? And then, but we saw them, and they were really good live, and I thought, okay, yeah, these guys are probably going to be like a band people talk about.
Big,
was there anybody like that you felt like, maybe this Coffee artist or anybody that you felt like, not just they're great and they need more appreciation, but like
they're going to be
this
huge
is probably
one
going to be
day.
huge. Yeah,
that's a really good question, actually.
It's not always like
I
that.
think
so,
King Princess, she was really, really good, and I think she'll be really huge in like the indie world. I think. You know, she was very entertaining. She had a very captivating grip on the audience right away. She's a performer and she knows it. I don't think she'll be as huge as like the Killers or anybody like that, but yeah, I think she'll be a big deal in the indie world for a long, long time. Other than that, I mean, I feel like everyone was about what I expected them to be. I don't see anyone, I mean, and I could be wrong.
It could be too, you know, you were asked to cover kind of marquee artists too.
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't like you were going around getting to watch some obscure stuff.
Exactly. Like Lizzo, Cardi B, you know,
Cardi B.
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, she came out a half hour late, first of all.
Yeah. When I read that, I was like, yep.
And you could hear like Mumford and Sons playing on the far stage. They had the headlining set on the Amex stage, and yeah, dude, it was kind of wild. And she finally came out and she put on a show. You know, she did what she, you know, a lot of production value in the Cardi B set, but it was interesting. I mean, she's kind of like doing like a Lil' Kim, Nicki Minaj kind of thing, you know, which is interesting, I guess. But you know, people like love her, and I don't know. I don't know if I might be too old.
Yeah,
but.
I don't really have strong opinions.
Yeah, and like, look, man, like it's cool. Like she's fine for what she's trying to do. Like you know, that's cool. I'm not gonna sit here and be like whatever, but yeah, it was.
It's just interesting when it's a challenge. It's like, hey, Mr. Japan Droids, go talk about Cardi B now.
Exactly.
You know? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like Mr. Like, you know, you only listen to like, bands on certain record labels 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
And now
yeah.
you have to talk about
All
Cardi
right.
B. And,
Captain Vagrant Records.
Yeah,
Let's
seriously.
find out what you have
exactly.
to say about Billie Eilish.
Exactly. So, well, and thankfully Lil Uzi Vert canceled 6 hours before he was supposed to go on. So, and it was funny too, because I didn't know that. This DJ Jai Wolf, this I think he's Pakistani like producer and DJ. He played a set earlier that day, and they were like, "Hey man, do you want to play in Lil Uzi's spot and do an encore?" And he was like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" So he went on, and I go over there, and it's like Daft Punk or something. I'm like,
this ain't Lil Uzi Vert.
Very good. I don't I don't think this is Lil Uzi Vert, you know. And I actually tried to write something, and then when I finally got internet connection, I saw that he canceled, and it was Jai Wolf, and I was like, man, good.
Yeah,
Because he would have been the hardest one probably to say anything good about, you know. And like 21 Savage, even though I don't really dig trap, like he still really had an interesting kind of, you know, presence, I thought, you know. I felt like I could write a lot about that. So, you know, I really kind of liked what he was going for, you know, even if the music wasn't really my thing. Like I got kind of the whole vibe of that scene. I do feel
like, especially guys like you and me have been around a while and seen a lot of live shows.
Yeah.
Like we know a lot about different types of music. Like I could cover Cardi B or Lil Uzi Vert if I had to, you know, like if I was asked to.
Right.
And I think I could come up with some things to say, both positive or negative, just depending on the performance itself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's, I don't know. It's cool that you felt the same way. So
yeah, totally, man. Like, you know, look, I mean, you can either bitch about it or you can try to see what people like about it. You know, try and understand it. You know, and I think trying to understand it is a much better.
That was
going to
be another question that I had before you were going in. I was thinking, like, to what degree would you be like talking to the audience or paying attention to how the audience was reacting to it? Because to me, that's a part of what you're going to be reporting on. You know, it's like, and you did in the final piece. So I was like, oh, cool, he did. He was looking at that, you know. But
so
did you ever be like, hey, so you seem to be into this 17-year-old dude? What is it about Cardi B that speaks to you? You know,
I like asking people in the audience.
Shut up, you know,
fuck you, man. No, I didn't really poll any audience members, but I will say during Lizzo, basically it was like me and there was this guy who was, I think, there with like maybe his girlfriend, and when Truth Hurts was going on, he was like, these girls are running shit right now, man. I'm like, hey man, you know, and then he started singing along with the song too, and like
man, that's not new. I think we're pretty you and I have talked about how we've covered a few female artists, but we haven't done a lot of female, but I think the more we cover the 2010s, that's definitely going to be true.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Where you're going to see a lot
Who run the world, Chris?
Girls,
totally.
I'm not even pretending. We look down these chart lists, especially in the last 20 years, and you know the songs by women are almost always like better than the songs by men. You know,
it's true.
It's you know, so
well, and I mean, the songs by dudes are like, I'm sad, or I'm fucking man. Like, you know, it's either cock rock or emo, like, or somewhere in between, you know, like, or James Blunt, You're Beautiful, which is on this chart.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're going to get there. We're 2006. Are you ready to transition, talk about 2006 a little bit?
Yeah, man, I can dig it.
Well, definitely. Well, there's two other things to mention. So your tour of listening to every artist that is currly active right now this last week doesn't begin and end at ACL, because you saw two other shows.
I did.
We should at least talk about it, because we already knew you were going to go see Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
And then I get a text from you the other night. You're like, oh yeah, hey, check out the modular synth.
I'm at Stubbs seeing James Blake tonight. Yeah.
I was like, good God.
I know.
You know, you just.
Courtney bought tickets for the James Blake show like 2 months ago. I know, she really wanted to see him, and that was before even I was planning on going to Wu-Tang. And like, I got the call to do ACL, and then Graham texted me and was like, I got us Wu-Tang tickets.
Yeah, if you think about this, hold on. Caitlin gets you hooked up with ACL.
Yeah.
Courtney gets you hooked up to the James Blake. And Graham gets you hooked up with Wu-Tang.
Yeah, I know.
You just sit around, people just drop tickets on you, bro.
Telling you, man.
I gotta be friends with you.
Well, I paid for my James Blake ticket, so that's.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, okay. Courtney bought them, and I paid her for my ticket. So but it's not like
I was just joking around. Anyway.
No, I
got to be friends with you like I'm not already.
Well, I was like, if I have come across tickets that we can both use, Chris, I will gladly give you one to go see. You want to go see the Bitchin' Bajas?
Yeah, we'll go see those guys.
Go see guys play chords on.
You know
synths.
what? I tell you, like if they come back to town, we should go.
I want to go. I want to see it. Yeah, totally.
I want to get your opinion on utterly boring. I'm sorry, those guys, there's like, of all the artists we talk about, those are the guys most likely to actually ever hear this. It's like someone talked about us, you know? Like
Ooh, really?
Yeah,
Oh my
so
God.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to like say that you're complete frauds, but you know, it's pretty dull. Maybe you should have Cardi B up there moving
Oh
around.
God, no.
Listen, guys, all I'm saying, disco lights making a crown over your head, you know, as you float down from the stage.
Yeah.
Maybe something to think about.
Production value.
Come on, man.
guys. Come
something,
on.
Something other than just holding a C chord and letting the sequencer go boop, 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 boop for 30 minutes. Dear God.
Chris has got a lot of problems with. I'm sorry. Where were we?
We were complaining about the bitch and Bajas.
Bitch and
I'm just
Bajas.
getting started, bro.
All right, well,
No,
I'll
I'm
buy the Bitch and Bajas tickets when they come back to. I'll cover it, and then we'll go see them, and then I'll you know, we'll do
find
a
out what you think.
Patreon episode in the car like we did with P.
Yeah. That sounds cool.
That'd be good. So,
I gave you tickets to P-Funk. You literally have just had tickets landing on your head.
look, man, you know, I'm telling you, man.
You're just a cool guy, Marty. People want to hang out with you. It's all good. No
Oh,
problem.
Chris. Even if I do eat too many chicken fingers.
Yeah, it's too.
Anyway, yeah. So 2006 is the year we are covering this episode, and
2006,
lots of stuff to talk about this year. I think personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's get started with
do it.
2006. So we've been covering the 2000s pretty good, which I'm glad because the first couple of seasons we didn't really touch it too hard, right? So, but this season we've hit 2009 and now 2006. Obviously, 2006 we're in the second Bush administration.
Yeah. Winding down.
Yeah. Katrina happened the previous year. Mood of the country, not great, guys.
No, it's not.
It's not really great.
Not really great at all.
So those of you who, well, you might be able to relate. I don't know how things are right now, but you know, like the mood in the country wasn't fabulous in 2006. But but we'll get more into that in a second. So let's talk about. Do you want to go to the Wikipedia article?
Yeah, I got it up right now.
Okay. So let me pull it up, and then what do you got?
Let's see. I'm kind of dashing through the snow here. And honestly, it's kind of all meh stuff, to be honest. I mean, what am I seeing here? Like the Family Values tour with Korn, the Deftones, and Stone Sour begins. First one since 2001. That OK Go, that Here It Goes Again, that video that came out this year, where they're on the treadmills and shit.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Here it goes, here it goes again.
They've always done pretty interesting videos.
Yeah, they're kind of an interesting band. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never had an opinion about them. It's always like super poppy and silly, but in a way that's like maybe this is the new Devo, but then it never feels serious enough to, or like good. I don't know if it's ever quite good enough to be on that level.
Exactly.
But it's sort of, I don't know.
They're from DC, I think, and they started out in the DC punk scene, and their lead singer said, he was telling a story about how Ian MacKaye from, whatever Discord and Fugazi loaned them like $3,000 to press their 7-inch. And Ian MacKaye was like, look, man, he was like, I'm going to give you this money to do this, but you got to pay me back. And if you don't pay me back, I'm not going to be able to develop other bands like you guys. And he was like, okay, I promise I'll pay you back. And like, he was like, I paid him back like 2 weeks later or whatever. And, so it's kind of interesting. Here's an interesting thing. Microsoft releases the first Zune media player. Remember the Zune, Chris?
Yes, I do. So 2006, I worked at a startup company, and there was a kid there who was a couple years younger than me, and he got a Zune from his parents gave him one, and it was brown, like literally like poop brown.
Zune. Really?
It was brown, but then it had like an avocado like layer of lacquer on it or something. I can't really explain it, but it was literally like brown and green Zune, but like just earth tones, like. If they had made an MP3 player in like 1972, that's what it would have looked like.
Yeah. Do you ever watch that show Chuck? You ever seen that show?
No.
It's this weird kind of like not sci-fi, but like the main character is like a computer geek, and I never really watched the show, but there's this one scene in one of the episodes where they're at this like shopping mall, and in order to do something, they have to like play some Rush songs or something to like in order to like stop this like terrorist from doing something. And I think it's either Chuck or like one of the other characters goes to one of the other characters and is like, "You have any Rush albums?" And he's like, got them all on my Zune. And then he was like, no, just kidding. I have an iPod.
Yeah.
It's kind
Well,
of
I guess there's a Zune handed out at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 as well.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So he's got a Zune.
He's listening to like Brandy, You're a Fine Girl on
Yeah,
the Zune.
exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. I saw Guardians 2. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's at the very end.
Really?
He gets one.
Maybe
yeah.
I just forgot.
Yeah, it's funny because he's like, oh, it's all the rage on Earth now,
Everybody loves the Zune for 3 months.
So
Let's see what else we got here.
Snow
Patrol comes. Oh Jesus! Like the really bad like adult contemporary rock music is really big this year.
Yeah, Snow Patrol is one. The first song I heard from them is a song called Chocolate, which I thought was pretty good because it kind of it doesn't really rock, but it sounds like if it's the softest song by a rock band, then that band's probably pretty good. It kind of has a driving dun 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 kind of almost like an Interpol kind of thing. And I thought, oh, this band's probably pretty good. And then what's their big hit from this year? Chasing
Cars.
Chasing Cars. I heard that and I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Wrong.
If I just stay here.
Yeah.
Like
I had a friend who was really into that, and I actually at the end of the decade I asked my friends to. This is the most Chris Wright story ever. I was like, hey, decade ended. Throw me some songs on Facebook, and I'll write like reviews of them or something from
That's
this
a good
last
idea.
decade.
Shit.
Yeah. And I was like, throw them out. And one of them asked me to review that because that was her favorite song from it. And I had to be nice about it. But I don't think it's that good.
Yeah.
Song about laying in bed and doing nothing, which in a way captures the vibe of 2006 pretty well to me. But I feel like not a great song. And not a great band.
That band Panic at the Disco, they released their first album.
Weird band.
When that first album came, I listened to the hell out of that record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really was A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. I really liked that album. It's like, a bunch of like theater kids decided to make a punk album. That's kind of fun.
To me, it seemed they always seem to have like an American Britpop thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
So and being a huge Britpop fan, like there was always a part of me that was like, I heard 9 in the Afternoon, and I was like, okay, so this is like deliberately Beatle-esque and things like that, and I could imagine Blur kind of trafficking in this.
Sure, yeah.
And I've always wanted American bands to do that. But then I also, when I'd hear it, I'd be like, yeah, but it's so on the nose. It's like, I don't know if and I never did decide. Like they've come back. I think they've got an album out recently or something.
Yeah, they've been pretty active since they started.
I think their fan base is pretty devoted too.
Oh, yeah, they are. Like, they have a really devoted fan base for sure.
And so they're one of those bands where I'm like, I'm cool with them the little bit that I know about them, but I kind of worry that if I say, yeah, I like that band, and then I go back and actually listen to the albums, they'll be horrible, and I'll be like, oh, well, actually, I don't. But,
and
what's that song that was a big hit this year? I Write
Sins Not Tragedies.
Yeah.
I think that was the song that came out in 06. Yeah. So
like that's such it's a Smith song title. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to see just a song with that title being on the charts.
Right
next to
totally.
My Humps or whatever. Yes, we'll get to that next
Bridge.
time. Yeah. Oh God.
Oh man.
Not a classic year for the charts, guys.
Yeah. Rivers Cuomo confirms Weezer's on hiatus again. How do you feel about it?
Really?
Yeah. In 2006. So what, 06 to like, when did they come out? They start making the like Ratitude and all that shit.
That would have been, I think this must have been a short hiatus because they really didn't slow down after the Green album, because it goes like Green, Maladroit, Make Believe, then the Red album and Ratitude. So, they, and that's all within the 2000s. So maybe they were off for a year and they figured it out, but...
I don't know.
Weezer's one of those bands where the first 2 albums are really great, and then it's just diminishing returns.
This conversation has been beaten into the ground.
Yeah, we don't even have to talk about it.
I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't or anything like that. But,
right. But like the comings and goings of Weezer in 2006 pretty much don't matter.
Yeah, like Lil Wayne is on a song on Ratitude, I'm pretty sure.
It's crazy.
Man, Pearl Jam released that Avocado album, their 5th studio album.
I never listened to that. I had a friend who was telling me I had to listen to it.
It's really good. It's a great record. I saw them on that tour.
You could get the Avocado album to go with the Avocado Zune. It would be perfect. playing your avocado Pearl Jam on an avocado.
If that actually
eating an avocado, you're the most millennial ever.
Oh my God.
Not
dude.
really. You'd be a Gen Xer pretending to be a millennial.
Pretty much, yeah. What do they call that? Like Inception or whatever?
Yeah. Exhibit is there. We put an avocado in your avocado.
Yeah, we got avocados in your avocados on your avocado Zoom, dog. Like, fucking A, man. Yeah, it's so funny looking through these lists and seeing like just like weird like band lineup changes. Like this guy left this band and joined this band, or this guy left this band to like focus on running his restaurant. Like, Jesus, man.
Sometimes it's like you can tell someone came to Wikipedia and was like, "I'm the biggest Killing Joke fan there is."
Yeah,
so I've got to add.
Yeah,
Killing Joke released their 13th studio album. This
People
was Killing
have
Joke's
to know.
last album to include the original 4 members of the band. It's like, okay. I mean, that's cool.
Their lead singer is like a crazy conspiracy theorist guy, and like,
oh really?
Yeah, I think so. I could be. I thought I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't looked into it. But yeah, maybe that should be on here.
Yeah, maybe. Rolling Stones play a free concert for 1.3 million people in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Rolling Stones played like at Zilker Park once, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
like,
we had a friend Chelsea who went to that show. So.
Chelsea was at that show.
Yeah, she's a huge Rolling Stones fan. So
that's not surprising. I can see that.
But
that's cool.
I didn't go, and I should have. You know, like I think there was. It just happened at a time in my life when like that wasn't.
When
like,
was that?
feasible.
When would that have been?
Don't
remember.
Like I think at the 2010, 2011, something like that. I think
I was living here at the time. How the fuck did I not know about that?
Maybe it was a couple years before that. I don't know, but I think it was around that time. Someone can fact check me on that. I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is, to me, and again, we're kind of talking charts here, but I want to talk more about the cultural point that this makes. James Blunt releases You're Beautiful, becomes the first British artist to top the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart since Elton John with Candle in the Wind 97.
Holy shit.
Almost 9 years earlier.
Wow.
What? Like no British artist in 9 years? Like not even Coldplay, I guess, topped the charts in that time period.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of...
see that.
As a guy who follows a lot of British music, or like Amy Winehouse, or I mean, there's a couple of people that you think might have been able to do it, you know. But as a fan of British music, that's always been a frustrating thing because if you look back in the in certain periods of the time, the '60s. Well, really, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there are huge British bands that are constantly at the top of the charts. And then somewhere in the early 90s, kind of around about Nirvana comes along, and it's just almost like a lockout.
Yeah.
Like, just British artists just can't make it in the U.S. anymore.
It's crazy.
You know? I mean, obviously, there are Coldplays, and there are examples of bands that do make it, Bush or whatever. But, but not like it. You don't have that big push of like the Led Zeppelins and the
Who and all that.
Or even like Duran Duran or some of those groups,
It's true.
It's kind of weird. I don't know if that's changed much. I don't think it has. So
it's crazy, man. Yeah, I guess I
wonder
never
if
really
it's a
thought
part
about
of that lockdown we talked about with the Telecommunications Act in '96.
Probably. Yeah, probably has that probably has a little bit to do with it, if anything. And I was actually kind of talking to Courtney about this. I feel like it works a little bit differently in the UK, especially in Europe, you know, and I think in different parts of Europe, like things don't get over there as quickly from here as they do. You know, we see punk and all that stuff, like not like Sex Pistols, Clash punk, but like, you know, Epitaph Records and hardcore and all that stuff. Apparently, like that stuff's still really, really, really big in certain parts of Europe, and like bands are going over there and touring a lot and very extensively and playing big venues. But yeah, I feel like the UK especially it was a little more rock focused back then. I don't know if it's different now, but.
The UK was strange. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure where it stands now. The UK, I can speak for sure, in the 90s, you know, was focused all around the weekly music magazines.
Yeah.
And so what was tricky is that, you know, they would build up artists and then tear them down, you know. And because of the weekly cycle, they needed new artists all the time.
Yeah.
So they would push brand new artists that hadn't played. I remember when Gomez came out. Now Gomez is a great band, but like they were covering Gomez like it's the best band in Britain. They never even played a date. Their album wasn't even out. Like, how can you say they're the best band in Britain when they haven't even released anything or played any shows? You know, like you can't even say that.
Right.
But I guess, I don't know, some guy heard their demo or something, you know, and they were already pushing them that way. So Britain has always been a little weird because they're quick to jump on their own trends, almost too quick to jump on their own trends, but then also really quick to jump off of them. So almost the opposite of what you're saying about I don't know where punk is,
Yeah.
but I think they also feel a lot of ownership of punk in the UK.
Yeah, and that's fair.
rightfully so.
Yeah, well, I mean, Clash is a British magazine,
Exactly.
and they wanted me to cover a lot of the pop stuff. So,
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but what else we got here? Shakira's single "Hips Don't Lie" sells 266,500 downloads in its first week of availability. So this is when, downloading music was really starting to hit its stride and really starting to become the way that...
Pre-streaming, but downloading was really happening.
For sure. What's funny is when I was in broadcasting school, and this would have been 2000, everybody thought that terrestrial radio was going to get replaced by Sirius XM radio, and that's not what happened at all.
Right.
It got replaced by streaming, and downloading first.
I never thought Sirius was going to be really
everybody thought that was where everything was going back then.
Satellites.
Man. Yes. Like satellite radio, that's where everything's going. Like, everybody thought that, that was going to be the death knell of terrestrial radio.
There's a lot of, I know it's hindsight's 2020, but during that period, there was a lot of like people who were just backing the wrong horse. Yeah. Steph worked she was a manager of a Blockbuster, and they were talking about like when HD, DVD and Blu-ray were first being discussed. They're like, I know sales, or rentals have really dipped. And this was already in the age of Netflix when they were, competing through the mail and stuff. But, when Blu-ray comes along, we're back on top, and they were convinced that like Blu-ray was going to save Blockbuster.
Really?
Yeah, because they thought, it's just the people are tired of the format or something. You know what I mean? And that they will come to us for the Blu-ray versions, and that's the next. Just like everybody moved up to DVD from VCR, or VHS, the same thing will happen. It was a weird time. I had to convince my band to use the internet at all.
You told me that,
stuff, and it was like a big fight because we had gone to school to kind of like you with broadcasting. We had gone to school to learn like this is the way the music industry works,
right?
And it was like, hey, everything's on fire, guys. Did you notice? And nobody would notice because there was too much money and energy invested in the kind of momentum of the way the industry was going. It had been going, So.
Yeah, I don't know if people when I was in broadcasting school, it wasn't a thing where people were saying like this is the writing on the wall and terrestrial radio is not going to exist in another 5 years, but they were like, this is hard work. You have to really be. And I remember like talking to people at radio stations that I wanted to work for. I remember talking to this one guy, and I can't remember the job I was applying for, but I sent him my resume and audition tape and all that shit, and I never heard back. But I called the guy who was hiring, and he told me about it, and he was like, yeah, this is tough, and like I have high blood pressure because of it, and like, it's like this is what I do, and it just sounded like just rudimentary bullshit. And I was like, this is what the radio industry is, this is what I did this broadcasting school for. Like, fuck, man, like this is stupid.
I think it was really tough for guys our age who were interested in radio or making music and stuff, because we were definitely in the transition period. Like if I was 20 years old now, I'd have a better sense of what to do. But back then, everyone was telling you to do it the old way, and the old way was clearly breaking.
But they didn't know what the new way was going to be.
Right, yet, and they get in your own head, because you'd say, well, I think the new way is going to be X. And the really smart people were the people who were able to get, to seize on that.
Right, exactly.
But you would say, I think it's X, and 15 people would tell you, no, that's not X. And you go, oh, I guess I'm wrong. And then, dang it was X.
Shit.
So
I think people are going to download music and put it directly on their devices. No, that's never going to take off.
Yeah, that's just a toy.
Yeah, the iPod is bullshit. People want CDs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and there's a lot of like financial, economic reasons why they would want to keep people buying CDs. So,
of course.
It's tricky.
It is very tricky.
I'm not seeing a whole lot on here that I'm really thinking we got to talk about, other than stuff that's going to show up on our list for the charts anyway. There's not.
You sure you don't want to talk about the boy band 5 reuniting, Chris?
Yeah.
Who the fuck? What is that?
They're going to reunite minus the original bandmate
Sean Conlon.
So it's really 4 guys. Yeah. It's 4 guys.
5
together.
minus 1.
5 minus 1. Oh my gosh!
There was something I saw
5 minus
here.
1 plus 2, because there's like because Pat Smear shows up and starts playing with.
That would be awesome.
Hey, with the band 5,
like a hired gun. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Genre hopping is fine. No big deal kind of thing.
He's staring and doing the dances and stuff. That would be amazing.
That would be so cool.
Yeah,
Hey, Pat, wow, this is really a transformation from what you used to do.
The thing is, Pat is so charismatic and like cool.
He would fucking probably do it, yeah. He'd be like, fuck, man.
He's like, sure.
Oh, Jesus, this 57-year-old guy that was in the Germs is like a fucking boy band guy. Holy shit, no. There was something I saw in here, the British girl band All Saints.
All Saints.
Is that something? I feel like that would have been given your Spice Girls love. That
I did like All Saints back in the day. That's an embarrassing one because, like the Spice Girls thing, and we haven't talked about it too much on the podcast. There was a period where I got into Spice Girls, but it's complicated why I was into Spice Girls, and there were layers of irony to it and stuff.
Sure.
It kind of got out of control at a certain point. But I was basically trying to, in my own mind, make the connection between the old girl groups that I love and what was possible today,
Right.
And All Saints came along, and they seemed like a more soulful Spice Girls.
Sure.
And so they had a song called Never Ever, and it's not really a great song.
Yeah.
It's not really a great song, but it had like some organ churchy kind of gospel tinge to it for a pop song, and I thought, maybe they got something. Not really.
Not really.
They were gorgeous and they could sing, but the songs weren't. I mean, they did I think they did a cover of Under the Bridge by the Red Hot
did
Chili
they
Peppers.
really?
It was really bad.
Ooh,
so
man.
Yeah, I did not go see that tour in 2006.
Oh yeah, one other thing that we may want to bring up: 3-6 Mafia won an Academy Award for their song in "Hustle and Flow," which I think is kind of a big deal. That was a really good movie. I thought.
I haven't seen the movie, but I always heard. I remember really Roger Ebert complaining that he was like, everybody's going to dismiss this movie as like it's the movie about the pimp that becomes a rapper. You could trash this movie so fast with that kind of idea, but that's not what it is. It's a much better movie than that. So
yeah, the guy that directed Hustle and Flow is directing the Dolomite, or already did direct the Dolomite biopic with Eddie Murphy. Yeah. What is his name? Craig Brewer. Yeah. I think you can actually, it's going to be on Netflix, but you can see, and I got my Rudy Ray Moore P.D. Wheatstraw shirt on. Yeah, which I love. This is one of my favorite purchases in the last few months. But anyway, I think they're screening it at the Alamo, so I might go try and check one of those out.
There's one other thing I want to bring up. October 11th, after 25 years as an artist, Weird Al Yankovic finally gets his first top 10 hit with White and Nerdy.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So that was his first top 10?
Yeah, it was White and Nerdy, which he raps like a beast on that song, actually. He does really good on it.
Yeah, he can, when he has to do stuff like that, he's really good.
I think that he's kind of, in a way, an underappreciated talent. I know because it doesn't take much to write songs about food or whatever. And his sort of primary act is a little corny, but within his wheelhouse, he brings so much to it, and his band is so good that I think, people have told me that we should see him live because he's really fun live. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. Oh, yeah. Was it great?
It was great. I was really great.
Comes out in the fat suit and everything.
Yeah, and he did the Kurt Cobain. He looked for Smells Like Nirvana, and I did the fat suit for Fat, and the costume changes were really, really wild. But it was great, and it was Fun Fest, one of those early funs. The Friday the Friday evening where it was him, the Apples in stereo, and then him, and then he was the only one. They were the only two bands, and it was they were punk rock dudes and studded vests and shit, rocking out to it. And, it was everybody was into it. So
that's awesome.
It was cool. Yeah, it was very awesome. So
well, cool. So 2006, not a lot going on in the Wikipedia article, but we have a lot we can talk about in old 2006, right? You ready to move on? We'll do the first album. So
let's do it.
So we're going to start with my pick for 2006. And there were a couple albums that I was debating. I considered doing Amy Winehouse's album from this year, Back to Black, which is a fantastic record.
Really good.
And it talking about a second ago about the 60s girl groups thing. That would be a really good one to talk about. But it was between that and the album that I actually did pick. And the album that I picked is very, very personal. So this is going to be very much a different kind of discussion about an album because it's going to be a little bit more autobiographical than normal, I think. We'll see where it goes. We're still going to talk about the music on the album. But part of it was that the album that I picked is a very sad album. It
is kind of sad, yeah.
It's an extremely sad album, and in the context of it makes it even sadder. And so I was like, I don't know, maybe I don't really want to talk about something that just be sad. And I was telling Steph about it, and she was like, you listen to that album all the time, and you've never stopped listening to it since 2006. Like, he says, you never listen to the Amy Winehouse stuff, so don't even pretend.
Don't pretend that you should pick that.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So she told me not to. And then I started thinking, too, that the Amy Winehouse story is going to be really sad if we had to talk about that. So,
exactly.
So either way, we were going to get something extremely sad. So,
sure.
So here's the thing. This album that I picked, probably the most obscure album that we've talked about.
You think?
I think so. I mean, the band itself is not obscure, but the album, it sold
I can see that.
Yeah, I think it only sold, according to Wikipedia, like 14,000 copies.
Oh, yeah, 14,451 copies.
Yeah, by 2008 or something. So literally, this is a pretty obscure album, but let me play a little bit of it for you, and I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
You might recognize this voice here. One of my favorite opening lines of any album. That's the voice of David Lowery.
Yeah.
Those of you guys who know your camper van Beethoven will recognize his voice. And of course, this is the band Cracker. And we may go back to this. We may listen to those intro lines again in a second.
Yeah, totally.
This is Cracker's album Greenland from 2006. So Cracker, you may be saying to yourself, 2006, who was listening to Cracker? Well, like 14,000 people were listening to Cracker.
Not many people, but some people.
Not too many folks, but I'm a Cracker fan going way back. Like I liked Cracker back in the 90s. Their first two albums in particular, were important to me when I first was listening to rock music, and I didn't really follow their career after that, but in 2006 I just decided to check this one out, see what they were doing. I think it was on eMusic, so talking about downloads and stuff.
eMusic, man. Yeah, we always talked about how much we loved eMusic back in the day.
Right. And so I think I grabbed that song, which is called Something You Ain't Got. It's the opening track off the album, and it spoke to me and where I was in 2006, just like straight to my soul. And so I went and I got the rest of the album, and the rest of the album was, very similar. Now it's an album that is kind of varied, but it kind of, there's a lot on this album about loss and feelings of failure and decay and lots of different, pretty heavy hitting stuff, which spoke to me. It still does speak to me, but spoke to me very hard based on where I was in 2006. So when I also want to say real quick that we just did 1993, and one of the albums that I was considering was Kerosene Hat, which is their biggest
second album, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the album they're best known for. Yeah. I realize that it's a great album, but there's not a lot to say about it. Yeah. It's one of those albums where it's like, every song's good, but I mean, it's, you can talk about Cracker, but it's not something that really, Superchunk was a better choice for 93. But I said to myself, I was like, we'll get to Cracker because I'll eventually talk about Greenland. And then you were like, let's do 2006. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk about Greenland right now. Totally. That was not planned.
Perfect.
But so it
That's
went,
awesome.
It kind of threaded right in. So,
one of the things that I saw David Lowery said that he made this album to kind of figure out if he wanted to keep being a musician.
Right.
Which is, wow.
Well, I think you can tell listening to it too. Yeah. I mean, I read that too as we were prepping for this, and I was like, cool, that just confirms what I've always suspected about this album, which is that it's an album about ending your career, basically. It's kind of it's very much a kind of it's navel gazing kind of album, but we're going to talk about that a little bit and why that spoke to me in 2006 in a second. I want to get kind of your temperature on it because I know you hadn't heard it before. So,
I had not. Definitely had not heard this album. So the first thing I thought when Something You Ain't Got played, so there's a Get Up Kid song called Campfire Kansas, and it kind of reminds me of that song for some reason. And that's from a Get Up Kids album called On a Wire, which is like their kind of alt country albums. That makes sense. So I was like, okay, this is kind of like, I kind of get what this is like, given the time that this album came out. Like I get what this is kind of a little bit. And then I keep listening to it, and there's different production on most of the songs, and like, there's kind of really artistic flourishes on some of the songs. They kind of really go for it on a couple of songs here artistically, and then kind of scale it back a little bit and kind of have like a little more miniature of a sound, and maybe even kind of a minimal sound in some cases. And it was dynamic. It was not what I was expecting at all. And yes, the lyrical content very
reflective.
Very reflective and very like one of the, I think it's Where Have Those Days Gone when he says, I saw Thomas Pynchon. Hold on.
I saw Thomas Pynchon at the edge of the bar.
I saw Thomas Pynchon at the end of the bar. Like I was San Bernardino, whatever. And like I saw Thomas Pynchon. For those of you that don't know, Thomas Pynchon is a very reclusive novelist who's written books that some people say are, I don't want to say unreadable, but very hard to understand. Like you have to read them one or two times to understand them. Like one of them being Gravity's Rainbow, which is a very, very challenging read. Inherent Vice, which was made into a movie, which the movie is very convoluted and weird, but still really interesting. So,
which I've never read any of his stuff, but David Lowery has said for years that he wanted to be the Thomas Pynchon of rock. You know,
oh wow, right? that's interesting.
Yeah, which I'm not sure that the Cracker is not as impenetrable as that, but but I love that he does a follow-up, a very Cracker flourish, where he's like, no, that's just Rob Brezhnev writing his real astrology column. So that's very Cracker. So let's talk a little bit about Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker and get an idea of who these guys are, and then we'll talk specifically about Greenland. So so you guys will know Camper Van Beethoven. Even if you have never heard of Camper Van Beethoven before, you've probably heard the song "Take the Skinheads Bowling." Yeah, it's pretty well known. You know,
that's their one big kind of
really big. They do have a cover of Pictures of Matchstick Men too. That was kind of
do they really?
Yeah,
that's cool. So that's a great
and
song.
They've got and honestly, they've still, because they got back together and they've had a pretty cool career of like just weird off kilter, left field music, and they just have their own thing altogether. Well, I mean, they're the kind of band that would release Take the Skinheads Bowling, right? But David Lowery as a writer has always had that kind of smart ass part of it, right? This kind of sarcastic, silly thing that's always been apart from Camper Van Beethoven all the way through this album and beyond. Yeah. And that, to me, like that lyrical flourish and Where Have Those Days Gone is like, that's classic Cracker.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Cracker. So basically Camper Van Beethoven comes along, they were a part of that kind of vanguard of 80s, alternative music. And Camper Van Beethoven was absolutely mentioned in the same, paragraphs with bands like REM and bands. I mean, like Lowery, while I don't think they were ever quite in like the A list of that group, they were definitely like solid top B list of like the college rock revolution. So they would have been there with the Pixies, there with bands like that were really important, that maybe people didn't bank on becoming household names in the 80s, but they did consider them, the cutting edge of where alternative rock music was.
Yeah,
and so that's important, because what happens is right as they get to kind of the in 91, when bands like the Breeders and Nirvana are starting to be noticed, Camper Van Beethoven breaks up. And for whatever reason, and Lowery goes on and works with this guy Johnny Hickman and forms Cracker.
Right.
So Cracker is basically just it's not the same band.
Right.
It has a different flavor. It's more Americana, folk music, alt country focused.
Sure.
But I was telling Marty about it. They're not an alt country band really.
No.
But they're adjacent. They're like emissaries to alt country from alternative rock or something.
Right. The only review of this album I could find was on No Depression.
Right. So No Depression, of course,
is an alt country medium based publication.
Right. So they still are followed by those guys, like by that community to some degree, but they're not quite, they're not Uncle Tupelo.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty big alternative rock hit in 91, I guess, off their first album.
Low?
No, Low is on Kerosene Head.
On Kerosene Head. Their first album, I'm sorry.
They have Teen Angst. What the world needs now is another folk singer like I need a hold in my head.
Yeah.
That tells you very much like, Crackers. Again, that sort of smarmy kind of smartass snarky thing. And in the 90s, in the early 90s in particular, like that kind of sarcasm was going mainstream for the first time. And it's hard to think of it now because everybody's super sarcastic now, but like you got to cast your mind back. Like David Letterman was still on late night.
Yeah.
Like that was burgeoning. It was happening, but it wasn't everywhere. Like, my parents hated that kind of stuff, that kind of like side talk, like smart ass thing like Letterman did.
Like, you're a smart ass kind of shit.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's just mean or whatever. It's like sarcasm.
The top
what's
10.
Irony?
Remember when Letterman did the top 10? It was like oozing with that kind of shit.
Exactly, right. And, there's an old saying Europeans always say that Americans don't understand irony, which is not true, especially now. But back then, maybe it was closer to being true.
Right.
Like the mainstream Americans didn't, like they hadn't been listening to really ironic stuff. And suddenly Cracker was one of the most kind of arch, wry kind of songwriting that was played on the radio.
Sure.
I remember hearing Happy Birthday to Me off of their first record on KRBE in Houston. So I don't think it was a huge hit, but it was played to some degree on top 40 or pop radio over there. And it was, it had lyrics like, I remember you, I crashed your wedding with some orange crepe paper and some Halloween candy. It's like very like bizarre kind of B-52s almost like silly lyrics,
Sure.
And that's kind of how but always with this kind of arch thing. So anyway, my point in bringing all this up is that Cracker was a part of this revolutionary thing that changed, that was happening in the 90s.
Right.
And there was a lot of expectation on them. And their second album, Kerosene Hat, was a huge seller. Low was on that.
Yeah.
And that was an enormous hit. And in fact, still played on the radio from time to time to this day. I'll hear it out and about, eating tacos at Chewy's and they play Low.
They play it,
And it's still a great song, you know?
Is.
Like, and that's a song like Be With You Girls, like being low. Hey, like being stoned.
Yeah.
Like one of the first songs that was, not super, I don't think it was like super controversial, like not like Bob Dylan or whatever, but like
everybody
he's just saying, hey, like being stoned, and it's just a hit song on the radio, and so there was always this expectation that Cracker would continue. REM's going to and they released, 5 big hit albums in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Maybe Cracker will release 5 big hit albums in the 90s. And there was always an expectation that they probably would.
Right.
Everyone else was doing it. Nirvana released a bunch of stuff. They were a part of that conversation. And it didn't happen. Kerosene Hat was their high watermark commercially.
Sure.
And and they did have another minor hit with I Hate My Generation in the next, which is too, sorry. I remember hearing that song on the radio and being like, that's too arch for me.
Yeah. Like, wait a second, man.
Come on, guys.
Let's
like
pull it
that
back
vibe is kind of, dying off. And that's what happened to Cracker. So they released The Golden Age, Gentleman's Blues, and Forever. 3 albums from the mid 90s to early 2000s, just to diminishing returns over and over.
Right.
And so by 2006, Camper and Beethoven had gotten back together and done some stuff, but Cracker as a commercial force was spent.
Oh, really? Camper Van Beethoven got back together and did a reunion tour and stuff?
Yeah, they did some reunion tours and stuff. They actually mentioned it on this album at one point. We'll talk about it.
Oh, do they really?
Funny.
Okay.
Yeah. So David Lowery and also I think he went through a divorce or something, a major breakup and all this stuff.
Right.
So his headspace going into Greenland is very much like, this band this could be it. And he actually, I found something where he said, and we were talking like, this might be the last album I ever produce. Like this may be all I ever do,
Wow.
And so that was his vibe in 2006. That was also my vibe in 2006. So this is where we get into the autobiographical stuff. And I want to say up front, and I will let you talk about the album at some point, Marty. But
it's good, man. Chris, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
So I want to say something about autobiography in how it connects with music criticism. I'm not of the school that you need to talk about a bunch of autobiographical stuff to review albums.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of criticism that popped up in the 2000s, particularly pushed by the internet, where people are very much interested in writing like combination memoir and criticism. It's from the Ain't It Cool News kind of version. And you see it a lot in movies too, where it's like, I went and did this, and I saw this, and I did this, and
I think that's kind of
Sonic the Hedgehog. That game was great.
Lazy.
It's not just lazy. I think it's self-obsessed and narcissistic.
Because you had this experience, that's the only way you can talk about this being good.
The justification has always been that hey, if I'm having a bad day and I encounter this movie or this work of art, like that context is necessary so you can better understand my headspace going into
art imitates life, man.
Yeah, so you got to get some of that life in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can come up with philosophical justifications for that. And I also want to emphasize, I'm about to do just that.
Sure.
So I want to kind of say this up front, that I get it. I get that like art shouldn't depend on the experience that one individual person had to appreciate it.
Right.
But I think to understand my appreciation for this album in this particular case, I think we do need to talk about that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about myself than I usually do. So where am I in 2006? Well, you got to understand something about me, and Marty knows this. I've used this. I've said this to him before, and it sounds very funny, but when you look at it closely, it's not funny at all.
Yeah.
Basically, I was one of the most ambitious, like, teenagers and 20-somethings, I think, in the world. Like, I grew up listening to the Beatles and loving the Beatles, and my bar for success was being the Beatles.
Yeah.
Anything short of being the next John Lennon was failure in my mind. And I mean, to the point where it was like pathological and crazy,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It drove me crazy.
Wow.
Like literally, like in 2006, I think I was crazy.
Oh my God. I didn't know. I just thought you got kind of bummed and listened to some Kit Ream. Like,
no.
Way more than that.
No.
Okay.
I mean, do you think normal people listen to Kit Ream?
Sure.
Yeah. Like,
don't be so roly-poly, Chris. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get off track there.
No. I mean, because what happened is that I always kind of thought, I believed in myself a lot.
Yeah,
I thought,
I had this is great. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to have that.
And but I guess I just. So in 2006, it's important to note that I turned from 27 to 28 that year.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So 27 is a big year for rock stars.
Kurt Cobain,
Jimi
27 Club.
Hendrix, the 27 Club. Yeah. Chris Bell, we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like the 27 Club. So at 27 is usually the year you burn out, like if you're going to be a legend.
Yeah.
And I wasn't someone who believed in that, but I was aware of it.
Right.
That it's like by 27, you should be on the path to make that impact.
Right.
If you haven't, I mean, forget burning out. Like I hadn't even started at 27. I mean, I'd had a band, but the band had broken up at that point. We had moved to Austin to do music, but clearly that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I had struggled to find collaborators and everything like that.
Sure.
And I felt like, okay, I'm turning 28. And I really do think I went through what was basically my midlife crisis, but I went through it at 28.
Right.
Because it was like, like in the field of work that we work in, right?
Yeah.
You can be 41 and still have a career ahead of you.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You can still say, oh, hey, but I hadn't found this yet.
Right.
So I was like, well, all I ever wanted to be was a musician,
right.
And I wanted to be, John Lennon or something.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. Who am I without that? And I couldn't figure it out. And that's what sort of set me into a kind of rough tailspin during this period. And I don't bring this up because I want to have a little therapy session about it, but I do bring it up because essentially me and David Lowery were in the same place. The difference though is Lowery had kind of been up the mountain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But this album is him coming back down from the mountain and saying, I was just on the mountain though. Like I was going to go to the top of the mountain.
Right.
I didn't make it,
Right.
In a lot of ways, he's lamenting the fact that Cracker, and there's a lot of others. I want to say something else about this. There's not a lot of like scholarship on this album. Like, there's not a lot of reviews. Like you said, you can only find one review of it, really.
And it's like a paragraph.
Right. Like, this is not an album that has been discussed at all. So it means that there's a lot of speculation that I have to have. So I do want to say up front that I don't know what David Lowery was thinking on everything. He's got a blog where he talks about a couple of the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really good.
I didn't actually come across that. Shit, that sounds cool.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about everything, but it's actually pretty interesting. Like, especially as a Cracker fan, that he talks about lots of different songs on it. He was going to, I think, talk about every song, and then it's one of those things where he does it for like a year and a half and then gives up,
Yeah.
But he does cover a few of the songs that are on this album. And
it's crazy that you say that, this was kind of, I get the vibe from the whole coming down the mountain as far as lyrically, Musically, though, I think it tells a way different story. I think it tells like a kind of like, dynamic range of, this is where I've been and this is where I'm going. I have these really artistic flourishes here and there. I'm playing in different genres. I'm playing in alt country and pop and rock. There's a song that has like a 45-second guitar solo on this album.
Right.
I think, what is that? The Riverside, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And it's like, I was like, I heard that and I was like, holy shit. Like, this is like a fucking rocker, man. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I guess we should, let me turn around and say it's still Cracker. So they don't sound defeated.
No, yeah. That's what I like
want to turn
it.
around.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it. Like, that's part of the reason why I loved it, because if it had just been like woe is me, I'm a rock star, but I'm not as big of a rock star as I thought I could have been, like, who would care, right?
Yeah.
But it's like he sort of contextualized it in a way that I found very relatable. But you're right. Like, there's kind of three types of songs on this. Songs about failure, songs about that are just like Cracker smart ass songs that could be on any Cracker album, and then like big riff rockers like the Riverside, and especially Give Me One More Chance. Let's hear a little bit of Give Me One More Chance, because I just love the way that this riff goes in. But just to kind of make the point that it's not all just weepy ballads or whatever. But now this ended up being. I've seen Cracker live once. That's a whole other story. But I haven't seen them since Greenland. This is apparently. There you go. So you can see, like, you can imagine that live. It's become kind of a live staple for them, and they say like it just rocks live.
Sure, I bet it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some things on here that are kind of different, but okay. So I'll kind of go into some of the individual songs in a second, but let's talk a little bit more. So you said the diversity of it surprised you.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's always kind of been a Cracker thing, I think so. Go back, like Kerosene Hat isn't. 15 songs that all sound like Low.
That's true. Like yeah, and it's kind of like, it's some songs like are major key, some are minor. Like Give Me One More Chance is kind of a, I don't know,
just like a hard driving rocker.
Yeah. So I don't really get the whole like. I'm not sad when I listen to this whole album and I have this total experience. Like, it doesn't really make me sad. And I mean, you have a song that is almost the 12th song on the album, Better Times Are Coming Our Way. It almost kind of gives you a little bit of hope, unless I understood that song wrong. I don't know.
I think it's ironic. Yeah. There's a lot of unreliable narrators in Cracker stuff. And I mean, because the thing is that Better Times Are Coming Our Way. But the whole song sounds like this sinister kind of cod reggae song.
That's
what
true.
I mean? Almost to me, that's like the closest he gets to almost like a Tom Waits kind of thing. You know what I mean? Even at the end, he starts growling like Tom Waits. Listen to a little bit of how this sounds. You'll see what I mean about the sinister nature.
Oh yeah.
Right,
that percussion is so Tom Waits.
You can kind of see. Let me go to like a little bit into the song. Yeah.
All of these things can be provided.
Listen to the chorus of this. We'll cut. It's hard to believe that that's a guy who really believes better times coming his way.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little sinister. You're right.
And I mean, there's also songs like, Darling, We're Out of Time, Night Falls, C.D. Eefney, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Where Have Those Days Gone, Maggie. Like, these all have kind of elements of regret, I think, sense of failure, but not like a totally defeated sense necessarily either,
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not just like you don't listen to this album to shoot yourself.
Exactly.
It's an album where you listen to it and it's like, okay, someone else is dealing with kind of a similar thing where their ambitions aren't met.
Yeah.
And also to a degree about relationships as well. Like, it's not always, professional or whatever. But
Right. I Need Better Friends. That's a really fun song.
That's very much like a Cracker.
Can you play a little bit of that song?
Yeah.
There's one line on there that I can't totally remember, but it just made me laugh.
Is it kind of at the end when his drunk friends burst in or whatever? Yeah. So
yeah, see This is like the Goon Squad comes in.
Yeah.
It's so good,
let's hear this.
Yeah,
so he's
throw that
like
on.
the whole
It's
song.
funny.
He's talking about how he needs better friends.
Yeah.
But his friends actually sound like they're really engaged with him.
Yeah.
And it's got these crazy
Yeah,
organ
I
solos
know,
in
I
them, which
know.
are crazy. Like almost like some Bach stuff.
That's
going
like some
on
like, yeah.
It reminds me of a song by Screaming Trees called Sworn and Broken.
Drinking jasmine
I was
tea.
drinking jasmine tea when the Goon Squad came to me.
When the Goon Squad came for me,
It was all my drunken friends.
all my drunken friends.
So good.
They kicked down my front
Door again.
I need better friends.
But for now, it's fine.
So good.
The thing that I love about that
Been there.
is that, is that it's, there are a lot of unreliable narrators. David Lowery doesn't always write from his own perspective. He writes characters sometimes
Sure,
too. And
sure.
stuff. But I think there's a little bit of that is ironic. He covers it on his blog, and he kind of says, to some degree, it's about how he felt like he wasn't good at kind of glad handing with fans and stuff.
Oh, really?
Right. But I also think the way he says it is it's sort of like he's saying he needs better friends, but his friends are there for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, they just crack it, he's sort of miserable because he doesn't have the girl that he wants or whatever, and his friends just show up and have a party. And it's like, honestly, you got some pretty good friends there, David.
Yeah.
It's good,
It doesn't sound like that bad of a life to me, man.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what's fun about it, because there is a little bit of like healing salve on this album. It's like
Right,
you've got
right.
friends, you've got
Yeah.
people you could be. I mean, even in
You're not alone.
where he talks about Where Have Those Days Gone, he talks about that travel. This is one of my favorite songs on the record. Let's hear a little bit of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those songs where it's a story song. You got to hear the whole thing. But I want to get that part where he talks about his Jewish Mexican friend.
Yeah.
Took a trip to California, see where those old days had gone.
Okay, an old rocker talking about, where are the old days or whatever.
Yeah.
Like maybe that sounds like it's going to be a little boring, but it's not. It's great. There's a
Mendocino County, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Southern California references on this album, too.
Right. I think there's a lot related to what's called the Lost Coast in California.
Okay.
With my only Jewish Mexican friend.
Which I figured out I actually have a Jewish Mexican
Really?
friend. Yeah. So I'll tell you about that later. But
Yeah.
But this is kind of a true story here too.
Yeah.
Listen, check this out. Like,
In the alley for a smoke, got beat up by some Aryan goons.
Yeah.
Lying in my blood, I said, hey Juan, does this mean I'm still a gringo?
Does it mean I'm still a what?
does that mean? Hey Juan, does this mean I'm still a gringo? Because he and his Mexican friend get beat up by some skinheads, which actually happened. They didn't actually get caught. They got away. But he said later he realized maybe he could have got them on his side if he said, I'm the guy who wrote "Take the Skinheads Bowling."
Oh, jeez.
So it's some ironic that the guy who wrote that got chased down by a bunch of skinheads, right?
Jeez.
But
We'll Take the Skinheads Bowling. What is? I don't know if I've ever heard that song.
you never heard "Take the Skinheads Bowling"?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
I mean, what?
It's Camp Van Beethoven.
What context are we talking about? Like, as far as
It's a joke.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he's not saying
Yeah, okay.
he's not
That's what I
pro
thought, yeah.
skinheads.
Right,
No.
no.
That's why it's funny.
Yeah.
It goes back to the irony in Camp Van Beethoven and David Lowery's lyrics.
yeah.
Let's hear "Take the Skinheads Bowling." Just to, maybe we've got some folks here who haven't heard it. So, super well known song from the from.
I
the
never
80s.
got into Camper Van Beethoven, so apologies for that. But
So, I mean, it's 85, so
Oh, wow, okay.
it's early, but
Every day I get up and pray to Jah, and he increases the number of clocks by exactly one. Everybody's coming home for lunch these days. Last night there were skinheads on my lawn. Take the skinheads bowling, take them bowling.
it kind of sounds like if the Replacements were a lot weirder.
yeah, honestly, yeah. Actually, very similar. I would say like the Esteem David Lowery was in was similar to the Esteem Paul Westerberg was in.
Yeah.
Right. And in a way have similar career arcs, with their kind of frustrating people who thought they were going to be the next big thing or whatever. Although Cracker, I think, probably did kind of succeed in a way that the Replacements didn't from a mainstream standpoint. But I know that Take the Skinheads Bowling, like just listening to a little bit of it right there, it's like, well, what's the big deal? But you got to go back to 1985, like a song that made fun of skinheads, but also kind of talked about taking them bowling. Like, I don't know. It was the musical equivalent of, I don't know if you've seen that video where the white power guys are having a march and the guy walked behind him with a tuba and played like, womp, womp, womp. Like this was like a version of that back in the 80s where it's like, we're going to make fun of these racists. These dicks. And, kind of take the air out of them by like, imagining them doing something ridiculous like going bowling, and so it became this kind of anthem of like left of center weirdness from the 80s. And Caravan Beethoven did a lot of stuff like that. Right. And so anyway, going back to Where Have Those Days Gone, I think that it's storytelling. But I think it's really easy to relate to. And again, going back to my headspace, it was like I was already feeling like whatever I'm going to achieve, I've already done, so I'm already looking back at, Graceworks and the stuff that I tried to do before that and saying, well, there was my chance, and I squandered it or whatever. But to know that there were other people out there who had, again, gone to the mountaintop and then could kind of look back on their own lives in a similar way, like that was actually very, I don't know, it just made me feel like I wasn't alone in that. So.
Well, that's cool. That's good. I like that. So there's one elephant in the room that I think we have to tackle here, Chris, and that is City Ifni.
Right.
You told me you could talk about that song for an hour if you wanted to. And what I felt about this song is when I was listening to this album for the first time, I was like, okay, flourishes of this, flourishes of that. Awesome. And then City Ifni, I feel like they were really swinging for the fence artistically in this song. And there's almost like two parts to it, I feel like, in a way. I think kind of breaks about a minute and a half in and kind of goes in a little bit of a different direction. Did you hear that, or am I hearing that right?
There may be some. I think it's cohesive as a work, written work. And in fact, what I want to do, and I never do this, but I want to actually read the lyrics of City Ifni to you guys. So let me start by saying City Ifni, if you don't know what that is, hey, join the club, guys. I didn't know until I had to look it up.
I still don't know what it means.
So City Ifni is the name of a city in Morocco.
Okay.
And so the city, and just to give you an idea, so I've got my notes on Greenland. I've got a whole page on just City Ifni.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so it's a city in Morocco that was a Spanish city. So for hundreds of years, it was a Spanish city. And then in the 60s, it was reclaimed by Morocco, right? And there was a war or whatever. So, but it is in Morocco, but it has like a Spanish feel. So it's a little bit out of time in this place. And it's a very small city, right? And at one point, David Lowery ended up there. It was like an off the beaten path thing. And it was before Cracker actually started. So,
really?
So he actually had traveled there. And this song is a little bit about how he felt about the city, because the city was in a sense of decay, basically, or at least the Spanish parts of it were. Right. So the parts that it had all this like, Spanish architecture and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he was basically hanging out with people who were still kind of carrying the torch for the old City Ifni that didn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And so the song becomes contextualizing that story to say something else.
Right.
And I'm going to read the lyrics to you. Like I said, I usually don't just straight up read some lyrics, but I hope you guys won't mind that this time. Because I think it's poetry.
Sure.
We walked down a long promenade, down a winding stair, wide as boulevards. Vines and shrubs grew beneath the steps from the Spanish town to the African sea. We drank wine and toasted to the day when she was the queen before the long decay. We drank wine, slept off hangovers, lethargy, decay, and forgotten loves. We'd awake to the BBC, an old English queen on the balcony, wander around abandoned consulates, an old broken chair on the marble stair, and from the roof see canary seas, the discarded runway of Sidi Ifni. We drank wine lying on our backs on the warm tarmac in a bowl of stars. Well, I went down mostly on my own till I was alone in that shipwrecked house. Through the porthole see an epiphany. I would never leave this place alive. I drink gin with the old expats. We are broken things from a broken past, and it comes near but just out of grasp. The alchemist words that would bring her back. Hot damn. Like that. So
yeah, that's a lot to swallow.
there's a lot going on there, and I'm going to go into
Yeah.
English teacher mode for a second.
Yeah,
so
do it.
here's the brilliance of this song, and I think it's one of my favorite songs from the entire decade.
Wow. Okay.
So it starts with the city.
Mm-hmm.
Sidi Ifni, a Spanish city. It's the consulate, the brush growing up between steps. You could get the sense of this once glorious city that's decayed. I love that beautiful line about going out on the tarmac, drinking gin, and lying on his back underneath a bowl of stars. I've never heard the sky described
that's
that
cool.
way. It's one of my favorite images ever, beneath the bowl of stars. And realizing that he is utterly alone. And that loneliness is reflected in his surroundings. It's like something out of a Southern Gothic novel. The decay of Sidi Ifni is the decay in his own life. And at the end, he finally says, it's the loss of his relationship.
Yeah.
It's the loss of his girl that has made him internally like the decay of Sidi Ifni.
Right.
So that's brilliant. That's a great metaphor. It's a great extended metaphor, but I think there's another layer to it.
Okay.
So I think the first layer is the story of Sidi Ifni. The second layer is the actual story of the relationship that the character is going through. I think the third part of that, and this is speculation on my part, David Lowery, don't at me. The third layer is that it's about the decay of Cracker.
Yeah.
It's about the decay of the band.
Yeah.
It's about the decay of the career.
Yeah.
And that, so there's really, it's, you have to go kind of deep into the onion to get to what he's really dealing with.
So we're talking about like a 3-part tragedy here.
Really?
In a way.
Yeah. It's the city itself. It's the relationship
It's
that's
personal
gone.
relationship, and it's the band.
It's the band. It's all kind of just gone. And to stand at the end to say, I will never leave this place alive.
Yeah.
He's saying it's over.
Yeah.
And in fact, by the end of the album, he ends with, "Darling, we're out of time."
Right.
Like, which is like a great way to kind of send off the band. And
Sure.
Cracker, he got out of that funk, and Cracker
did
continued.
2 more albums after
Right,
this.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Cracker is not gone, but at that moment, I really 100% believe he was ready to say that's it.
Yeah.
And I think Sidi Ifni is a tremendous accomplishment there. And then
Absolutely.
on top of that, so I just went over the lyrics, right? Let's hear a little bit of it musically, because I think musically it's also super compelling. Listen to this. And this goes back to what you were saying about the diversity of this record, because this doesn't sound at all like what we've heard so far.
Nope. Kind of haunting organ there.
Yeah, I think that organ really makes it. Like
Yeah.
that's. I mean, if you just want to inject, my mood of 2006 into your head.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
Like, this is me in 2006 right here. This is why I ended up listening to Daniel Johnston and
Right. Kit Ream.
Kit Ream.
Yeah.
Right? And this guitar here. I also want to, I've been talking a lot about David Lowery, but Johnny Hickman, the guitar player that he collaborates with, like all this extra layering of guitars has like a blues rocking, boozy kind of feel, but it doesn't feel like, whenever I say cliched, it feels like tasteful.
Sure.
And I feel like, while I know this is going a little long, you can kind of get a sense of that epiphany that he describes, that feeling that he gets, is kind of reflected in the music too.
Right.
So, it's an immense piece of work,
Yeah.
and they don't even play it live very much. I looked it up on Setlist, and I think they played
really?
it only like 30 times or something.
Well, that's still probably more than I'd say they play. This seems like it'd be a hard song to pull off live.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a
and
lot
it's
going
from their
on.
most obscure record,
Exactly.
so probably most people
Yeah.
don't know it. And I think
Right.
also emotionally, you have to kind of... So it's like you're doing some emotional heavy lifting for a bunch of people who've never heard of the
And
song.
it's 6 minutes long, too.
Right. Well, that's the other... Now,
Yeah.
I could go on and on about Sidi Ifni, but I think just reading the lyrics and everything and explaining that stuff... I guess I just wrap up by what I wrote in the thing. I said, Sidi Ifni is one of the greatest lone wolf cries in rock history.
Wow, that's
and
good.
Nobody's ever heard it.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Fuck. Christgau, you listening to this shit?
Yeah. That's how you don't go purple, guys. Okay. So I could keep going about CD Evening, but the big thing that I would say is like take what I've just told you, get that context, go listen to it. The rest of the album is also great, but that is definitely the artistic pinnacle of the album.
Agreed.
So yeah. There's still a couple of other things that I want to mention.
Yeah.
There's a song called Fluffy Lucy.
Fluffy Lucy's so good, dude.
What I love about it is that it starts off like as a almost transparent Velvet Underground kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Listen to a little bit of this, but I want you guys to hear the transition where he goes from like a Velvet Underground thing. This is like what you were saying, where they make a change halfway through.
Yeah, okay.
In Fluffy Lucy, they absolutely do that. So listen to this. You can hear this is almost like Sunday Morning by, I think, when he sings, you can. But he makes a transition from Velvet Underground to like Cracker, and I think it's super effective.
Sure.
Fluffy Lucy, she's not fluffy.
I don't know about that lyric, David, but
I like it.
Yeah, she's got it easy.
That's so that's so Lou Reed. Now at about 1:45 in, let me cue this up. He kicks up into his upper register.
I won't tell a soul. So wake me in the morning.
Yeah, there it is.
You kick me in the ass. You say you're glad to see me, but this time I don't need it.
God, so good, man.
I'm right on the mark.
Right. So it's kind of woeful sounding song, but
yeah.
Last thing let me go down a couple. I wrote down some of my favorite lyrics in this. Very lyric driven, but something you ain't got. You know, it has one of my favorite. I played a little bit of it at the beginning. I said I was going to play it some more. I say just check out the album because it's the first thing you hear. But where he says, well, the first dance cost me $0.25 and the second dance cost me my heart.
Yeah.
Now I'm here on this bar stool like a circle. It ends where it starts. And it goes something like this. Always a swing and a miss. Like always a swing and a miss. Again, actually another metaphor where it's got kind of 3 layers where it's about being at a bar and not getting the girl, the baseball metaphor, but also it's kind of about Cracker sort of not being able to keep going.
It always goes in a circle. It ends where it starts.
The bar stool is a circle.
Yeah, he was early on the whhole True Detective time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat
thing.
Circle. Yeah, a little early on that one.
Yeah, totally.
And it's got some great duet vocals too. There's a female singer in the background, which is great.
Yeah.
Maggie has the line, "You're everything I ever wanted," which it's got one of the greatest opening lines too, where he's like, "Lazy bones, won't you get that beautiful ass out of bed? It's noon. I've been calling you since 11 a.m." But he's got this line, "You're everything I ever wanted, but I'm half of what you need." Like that's to me, that's a very almost like a grunt. I'm half the man I used to be, kind of thing. But I love that. He's kind of coming to grips with his feeling of diminishment. Which I love.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she ain't ever coming back, which kind of he covers in his blog. That's kind of a fun one. That's really that sounds like an all country song, but it's a great unreliable narrator song where he's talking about, "Oh, I'm glad my baby ain't never coming back because she's getting married," but you can tell he's in love with her still. But he's like, "My shotgun keeps me warm at night."
Oh, jeez.
It's so Cracker,
Yeah.
Minotaur. Which is very similar to "Give Me One More Chance" in some ways, sonically. Yeah. So it's a big riff rocker, but it's got a pretty serious thing. There's a lot of locations on this album.
Yeah.
So Greenland itself, he never mentions Greenland anywhere on the in the album to my knowledge. But my theory on why it's called Greenland is that Greenland is notorious for being an ice patch, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea of the promise of the green land and getting an icy field instead.
Yeah.
I think that's what that's all about. But he also talks about Spain, Morocco. Like he literally talks about Spanish girls in some place. So he's obviously kind of touring the Mediterranean a lot in part of this. There's a section in Minotaur he's talking about Greece, obviously. But he at one point he says, "Yeah, there stalks the Minotaur, come to take our youth. I grow old and bitter gray, and all I know, it slips away, except the memory I have of you. True love is our only shield. True love is our only shield, and true love is our sword. And then it's like he attacks it, then the music picks up, and it's like there's a Minotaur fight at the end of this song, which is kind of awesome. You know, like,
totally.
But to, you know, almost like a hippie thing to go back and talk about love as the thing that protects you. But to me, in 2006, the one thing that I can say for myself, I mean, I had a job in 2006, and I had Steph. Me and Steph were together, and like that was probably the one. You know, me and Steph were happy. You know, and we were still happy, but. If I hadn't had that, I don't know what I would have gone through, to be honest with you. Maybe join the 27 Club. But
oh, Chris, geez, I'm glad you didn't. Glad we're here recording a podcast 13 years later.
I'm not regretting that one bit.
All right, good. I was about to ask you if you had seen a movie because Minotaur reminded me of something, but I know the answer to it. You probably have not seen this movie.
Clash of the Titans?
Well, no. Sorry to bother you. That movie that the guy from The Coup did.
No.
It's there's a weird. That movie is so fucking bizarre and weird, but in a really cool way. The guy Boots Riley, who's in that rap group The Coup, he did that movie, and it's just it's out of control.
But there's a Minotaur in it.
Yeah, it's this really out of control take on capitalism.
Capitalism, because that was always just, the Coup's thing.
Yeah, it's so weird, but like it's cool. It's interesting. But anyway.
There's two more points that I want to make. Three more points. So toward the end of the album, I do think, so there's some legitimate criticism of the album. I think the songs are probably too long. The whole album itself is exhausting to listen to from start to finish.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. Like
I've listened to it for years, and I love it, but I do feel the weight of it when I listen to it.
I've never been intimidated by longer songs. If you have something to say, if you keep my attention for 6 minutes, like City If You Can, then I will invest that time.
Right.
You know, if you fucking go on and jam and be weird and be spacey, and like maybe that'll be cool, but it also could fall flat and be stupid, and I just want to listen to it.
I've got an idea. I'll get a sequencer. I'll hold a chord down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, six minutes.
See what happens. Yeah, let's do it. That won't get boring at all, right, Chris?
No, I think that'll be really compelling art. No, I do think that, insofar as we're making recommendations on here, like I have no qualm. I mean, I debated talking about Amy Winehouse, but there's really no question. Like for me, the album that spoke to my soul the most from 2006 is this album. Yeah. But when I recommend it to people, that's the one thing that I have on my mind. I think it's like 60-minute album. You know, there's a bunch of songs on it. It has two endings. It's like freaking Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Because Night Falls comes out and it sounds like a career ender. And then there's like 3 more songs. And then it ends with Darling, We're Out of Time, which is a perfect ending, like career ending song, you know?
Right.
So they made the right call there, but some people may feel like, oh man, I feel it sometimes. I feel exhausted emotionally by the time I get to the end of it, but maybe that's just me, you know? But Night Falls has a great line on it too about some of this stuff. I saw you waiting on that boulevard for great parades, the motorcades, they never pass, you know? So the idea of waiting for a parade that doesn't come. And then kind of the final thing to make, other than to say, listen to Darling, We're Out of Time, because that is really great, where they say like the sweet days of spring are gone. Some say we did our best, but let's not bring up the rest. Yeah. You know, he finally admits to what that is in Everybody Gets One. And Everybody Gets One, to me, it's not, in some ways, it's not a great song because it's kind of too... just kind of straightforward. Sure. But it's a great Cracker song because it's very much Cracker working in their usual mode. And it feels like if they're going to ride out on something like that. Yeah. It's very similar to like a Eurotrash Girl where they're telling a story. And it really tells the whole story of Cracker. Eurotrash Girl is the name of one of their previous songs.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It's kind of a long form story song, which is something Cracker is kind of perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, I can't just throw a Eurotrash Girl. Yeah, sorry. That is something that I do on this podcast where I just like throw something out like, surely everybody's heard of this obscure. Okay. It was the hidden track on Kerosene Hat. Why would you know what that is?
There was a hidden track on that album?
Yeah. Well, it was 1992, every album.
Oh, yeah. They all did that kind of shit. Yeah. I forgot about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I guess say about Everybody Gets One. That's where they tell the story of Cracker and Camper Van Beethoven. And Camper Van Beethoven getting back together is mentioned on that song because they had all their gear stolen in Montreal. So that was also a big thing, that all their stuff was stolen. The Montreal police refused to investigate it.
Jeez.
So, and it wasn't just like, I had a guitar stolen. It was like many, like
guitars, amps, fucking
thousands and
PA.
thousands of dollars worth of stuff that was just stolen. Shit. And then no police action at all taken on it. So he mentions it like the Montreal policeman wouldn't get off his ass and so, and all this stuff. So, but then at the end of it, and it's kind of the dumbest line, but it's also the best, where he's like, I'm driving around in a car that's full of yams for absolutely no reason. That's just who I am.
He's full of yams.
It's full of yams. But then he says, everybody gets one free. Yeah. So at the end of Cracker's career, he's got a car full of yams and he's just passing them out to everyone. Yeah. And to me, that's Cracker. That's the Take the Skinheads Bowling. That's the, Happy Birthday to Me, where he says, sometimes I wish I was Catholic. I don't know why. Like he always has these like very wry, silly kind of lyrics. And to kind of ride out on that and then Darling We're Out of Time, I think is the right choice.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah.
Man, I talk like crazy. I really didn't give you a lot of time to engage with it. I'm sorry, man. I just had a lot to say about it.
That's okay. Don't apologize, Chris. It's fine. I said everything I wanted to say. I'm good. Cool.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the album?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I really liked it. It was way different than, like I told you, it was much different than of an experience that I thought it was going to be. I didn't have much experience with Cracker or Camper Van Beethoven. Kerosene Hat is the only album of theirs I've heard. So
right, and it's a good album, but it's a little dated, I think. But
what, Kerosene Hat or this? Yeah, it is.
Hat, yeah.
Well, and the one thing I noticed about this is like, okay, this is actually what Cracker sounds like behind good production, and not that Kerosene Hat was recorded poorly or anything like that.
Right.
But, okay, it's modern. It's there's production techniques that were available in 2006 that maybe weren't back in 1990.
And there was also a sea change on that blog. He talks about, you and I talked about the song Movie Star and how the guitar sounds on it.
Yeah.
He was like, the crazy thing is that Movie Star and Get Off This both were songs that if you think about it, they were too punky for the radio 3 years earlier.
Right.
And he said, and when we were first working on them, like it just, the landscape changed out from under us.
Yeah.
And he said, even I listen to it now and I think, God, that sounds like not as heavy as it could have sounded. Sure. But at the time, we thought it sounded really, really raw.
Right.
And it's just, that's the nature of changing production techniques, like you said,
Yeah, their most recent album, Berkeley to Bakersfield, was like a punk and garage rock tribute, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of a 2-disc set. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I've listened to parts of it, which is interesting. And it kind of goes back to them being kind of a 2-part band. There's 2 guys in the band. One of them is legit like an alt. I told you, people who listen to this podcast maybe could understand this. Like, you have a friend, Graham, and I've never met Graham, but we know he's in an alt country band.
Yeah.
Cracker is almost like if me and Graham started a band. It would be like he's an alt country guy legit, and I'm not, but I could kind of dip my toe in.
You could do enough to make that come across. Okay.
Right. But I think that's always kind of given like this 2 sides to Cracker thing, and David Lowery's talked about that before. Yeah. So, So there it is, guys. Greenland. I hope you'll check it out. I know I talked about it a lot within the context of kind of my headspace at the time. I think Marty's, one of the big points that Marty made that I'm glad to hear is that it doesn't come off that way as a record. So I don't want you to be intimidated to listen to it.
Musically, it's awesome. Like, it's not going to make you depressed if you listen to it. It didn't make me depressed when I heard it the first time. Yeah, for sure.
And here's the thing. It didn't make me depressed either. It made me feel better, actually, about where I was. I just was depressed when I heard it. So,
like, this is someone that's speaking my language, someone going through the same things I am,
just on a kind of grander scale. But,
exactly.
But, it felt comforting to know that someone who had been there could still feel the way I felt, like there was unfinished business.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it made me feel like, cool, I probably, kind of like he did, probably, I can keep moving after this,
Well, cool. Well, awesome, guys. Well, thanks again for listening. We will be back next week with another burner of an episode for 2006. I'm looking really forward to. We're going to explore my pick for 06 and some other fun stuff. So we hope to catch you guys on the flip, and have a great week, and we will see you soon.